The city of Lyon has seen its share of villains. Smugglers, thieves, drug lords, killers. The streets have always whispered their names. Yet none were as carefully hidden, as perfectly disguised as the man who lived among them all. His name was Henri Marchand, a decorated French police officer, a husband, a father, later a grandfather whose laughter warmed family dinners. To neighbors, he was ordinary, unremarkable, the kind of man who waved politely while mowing his lawn. But Henri's life was not ordinary. Henri was a man divided. By day, he wore the uniform of the Republic, polished boots, and a crisp badge that caught the sunlight. He walked with authority, spoke with calm assurance, and carried himself like a man built to be trusted. Shopkeepers greeted him warmly, children waved, and his colleagues called him dependable. Mothers felt safer when he passed their door. But when night fell and Lyon's alleys filled with whispers, Henri shed his mask of protector. He was no longer the officer of the Republic. He was the ghost of the Albanian syndicate. The Albanians were predators, ruthless and calculating. Their business was kidnapping. Wealthy doctors, restaurateurs, factory owners, even young heirs, they were all prey. The formula was simple. Abduct the victim, demand ransom, negotiate. Payment came in two halves. The first secured the hostage's release. The second was a matter of loyalty and fear, the price of peace. But families are desperate creatures. Once their loved ones stumbled home bruised but breathing, many decided to cheat the game. They paid the first half and slammed the door on the second. They thought they could outwit the wolves. That was where Henri Marchand came in. To the Albanians, Henri was indispensable. A policeman could move freely. A policeman could knock on doors, ask questions, sit at kitchen tables without suspicion. Henri was more than a weapon. He was the perfect disguise. And when he arrived, it was already too late. The syndicate called him the Ghost, but his true role was simpler, darker. He was their executioner. The Didier family, Laurent Didier, a factory owner, had his son abducted. He paid the first half of the ransom, got his boy back, and decided that was enough. Weeks later, Henri knocked on his door in full uniform. Didier welcomed him inside, relieved to see the law had come. They sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee. Henri listened as Didier spun excuses. Then, without hesitation, Henri drew his pistol and shot Didier's wife in the face. The blast sprayed blood across the wallpaper. Didier's son screamed, but Henri dragged him by the hair onto the cold kitchen tiles. With the barrel pressed against the boy's jaw, Henri whispered about debts, betrayal, and the cost of disobedience. 2 bullets shattered the boy's skull. Laurent Didier paid the second half the next morning. But he was a hollow man, ruined. The message had been delivered. The Fournier widow, some debts were smaller, but no less binding. Madame Fournier, an elderly widow, refused to pay after her daughter was freed. She thought the Albanians wouldn't waste time on an old woman. She was wrong. Henri came late at night. He didn't shoot her. He wanted her to feel it. From her own shed, he took a pair of garden shears. One by one, he clipped her fingers, neat and slow. She bled out in her armchair while he sat across from her, smoking a cigarette. Her hand, grotesquely mutilated, rested in her lap like a broken flower. When her body was found in the morning, the neighborhood whispered in terror, but no one dared to speak of debts. The Charbonneau betrayal. The Charbonneaus were wealthy, arrogant. Their daughter was taken, and they paid only half, thinking lawyers and influence would shield them. Henri disagreed. One evening, Monsieur Charbonneau returned home to find his Mercedes still smoldering in the driveway, his wife's charred body locked inside. His twin sons, just 10 years old, had been forced to watch. Henri left them alive, not out of mercy, but to ensure their screams would echo through every waking moment of their father's life. The Albanians didn't need to kill everyone. They only needed to remind Lyon what disobedience cost. The tongue. By now, Henry's reputation was legend among the syndicate. He was creative, disciplined, and unflinching. One nightclub owner mocked the Albanians, declaring he would never pay another cent. Days later, his body was dredged from the rain, dismembered, wrapped in black garbage bags, but his tongue was missing. Weeks afterward, in the dim backroom of an Albanian-run cafe, Henry placed a silk handkerchief on the table before the gang's leader. Inside lay the missing tongue, neatly folded. The message was clear: betrayal silenced forever. A double life through it all. Henry's mask never slipped. He investigated murders he himself had committed, walking crime scenes with solemn frowns. He comforted grieving families whose loved ones he had butchered. He kissed his wife goodnight and tucked in his children with the same hands that had strangled and carved. His colleagues never suspected. His neighbors never doubted him. His wife never saw the shadow in his eyes. The Albanians paid him well. His home grew large. His children wore fine clothes. His retirement party was full of praise and applause. Henry Marchand, model officer, loyal servant of France. But beneath the uniform lived a ghost who had long since drowned in blood. The final year's age eventually caught him. By the 2010s, Henry was frail. His back bent, his lungs rattled with years of smoke, and he retreated into the countryside. He played the role of grandfather now, warm and gentle. His laughter filled family dinners. His stories charmed the young. To the world, he was nothing but a retired policeman. But the ghost never truly left. The deathbed confession: on his final night, Henry lay in a hospital bed, morphine dulling the pain. Beside him sat his grandson Julian, a rising detective in Lyon's organized crime division. Julian idolized his grandfather, seeing him as a guiding light in his career. The confession came in a whisper, but it struck like thunder. "I was their executioner," Henry rasped. "The Albanians. When they didn't pay, I made them pay." Julian thought him delirious, but Henry's eyes were sharp, unclouded. He recounted every horror: the Didier boy's skull shattering on the tiles, the widow's fingers falling one by one, the Charbonneau fire, the silk handkerchief with its gruesome gift. The words poured out like poison, unstoppable, each memory dripping with rot. "They'll never find my name in the files," Henry said, gripping his grandson's hand. "But it was me, Julian. All those unsolved cases, all those bodies, it was me. Promise me you'll remember, not for me, but for the truth." Henry Marchand died hours later. His family gathered close. They wept for a hero. The church bells tolled. Fellow officers saluted his coffin. To the world, he had died in peace, beloved and honored. Only Julian knew the truth. The legacy of the files remain unsolved. The names of the victims gather dust. The world still sees Henry Marchand as a loyal policeman. But Julian carries the truth, a truth that burns like acid every time he looks at his badge. Because the darkest monsters are not always the ones lurking in alleys. Sometimes they stand in broad daylight. Sometimes they wear uniforms. Henry Marchand lived as a husband, a father, a grandfather. But he died as what he truly was: the ghost in uniform, the butcher of Lyon. And his confession ensures his shadow will never truly fade.